In this animation, we're going to look at global wind patterns and talk about the reasons why the air circulates the way it does, and also patterns of rising and sinking air and how that relates to precipitation. The engine that drives it all, I guess you could say, is the intense heating by the sun that occurs in the equator areas where the sun is shining at a very high angle of incidence. And this hot air near the equator, being less dense, rises upward. It rises upward and it moves toward the poles, and then it gradually sinks at about 30 degrees north and south latitude. So we create these big spinning circles of air that we call the Hadley cells. Now, near the equator where the air is rising, it loses its ability to hold moisture, and you get a band of high rainfall and low pressure because there's air leaving the equator. Where the air sinks, in these belts at around 30 degrees north and south, you get high pressure sinking air, which creates areas of clear skies and desert climates. Now, as this air circulates and tries to flow back toward the equator along the surface of the Earth, or as some of it heads toward the North Pole or toward the South Pole, the Coriolis effect, the spin of the Earth, causes it to bend and turn, and it's going to create the two big wind belts that prevail on our Earth, two out of three. The trade winds, northeast trade winds and southeast trade winds, and then the prevailing westerlies. Now these winds curve, and the way they do because of the Coriolis effect. The winds curve to the right of their path, north of the equator. They curve to the left of their path, south of the equator, and they end up flowing from east to west or from west to east. Now the other big factor is what's happening at the poles. At the poles, the air is cold, and the cold air wants to sink. And as that cold polar air sinks, it heads toward the equator, and it bumps into this air heading toward the pole here and toward the South Pole here. And it creates an area of rising air, and again, rising air produces high precipitation belts at about 60 degrees north and about 60 degrees south latitude. At the poles themselves, the precipitation is quite modest because the air is sinking, and that creates low precipitation.